What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 258 of Hashtag AskGSM here today from November 7, 2018. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. As always, if you want to send in a question to the show, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below on this very video in the comments section. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So, without further ado, let's get started here first with the YouTube questions. Joe M. from YouTube, his first question was, in future years, how much weight should one's NXT career hold when being considered for the Hall of Fame? For example, even if their main roster careers never reached the heights many had expected, should the likes of Sami Zayn, The Revival, and Bayley be given a spot in the Hall of Fame based on the profound impact they had in making NXT what it is today? It really should not hold much weight at all. If we're talking about guys like Kevin Owens or Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins, sure, you can include the fact that Roman Reigns never won gold in NXT, but Kevin Owens, former NXT champion. Seth Rollins, former NXT champion. But at the same time, NXT is a developmental brand. I know it's become a lot more than that in recent years, but at the end of the day, it's merely a stepping stone to the main roster. That's essentially saying that John Cena, when he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, should be praised, and among his accolades should be the OVW Championship, which I don't know if he ever held, but just as a pure example here, Batista, Brock Lesnar, does that stuff at the end of the day really matter? I know NXT is way bigger than than OVW ever was. I understand that. But NXT, people do not get into the Hall of Fame for what they did down in developmental. That just doesn't make any sense. It can be included, again, if a Rollins or a Kevin Owens, or I don't even know who else gets a Sasha Banks or a Charlotte for sure. Former NXT Women's Champions Sasha and Charlotte both. That should be absolutely included in their long list of accomplishments and accolades when they inevitably get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame down the road. But that shouldn't be the only thing they're inducted for. That makes no sense. Sami Zayn, at this point in time, is not a WWE Hall of Famer. He's just not. The Revival, absolutely not. What, are you going to include them in the Hall of Fame just for the work they did down in NXT? Yeah, NXT had their own Hall of Fame, which would be a joke because it's a developmental brand. It makes no sense. People laughed at the fact that TNA had their own Hall of Fame a few years ago, which that makes more sense than NXT having their own Hall of Fame. I'm not saying that you're arguing that NXT should have their own Hall of Fame, but at the end of the day, it's a developmental brand. They should not be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame for what they did solely in NXT. Bayley, as of right now, is not a Hall of Fame caliber competitor. Neither is Sami Zayn, and sure as hell aren't the Revival. That's really pushing it. We're talking about Coco Beware and how he doesn't deserve to be in there, which is true. And I know these people accomplished quite a bit in NXT and having great matches and great story arcs. It doesn't matter. When you get to WWE, that shit doesn't matter. Now, I've always said the Hall of Fame accounts for everything that the company owns, including all the territories they bought out, WCW, ECW, like Sting. It's a WWE Hall of Fame. I know he's in there purely for the WCW work that he did, but they own the WCW stuff. They can include it in the video packages, so that's why he's in the WWE Hall of Fame. Someone from TNA, like a Samoa Joe, or, I guess AJ at this point might be a WWE Hall of Famer just based off the pure work, the work alone that he's done in the last 3 years in WWE. But an Eric Young, because he's a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, he should be included in the WWE Hall of Fame. Give me a break. They don't own it, so they don't care. Ring of Honor, same thing. NXT, I know they technically own, but it's not a big brand. It is a big brand, but not. It's never been meant to be taken seriously on the level of a Raw or a SmackDown in terms of production and what goes into it and making it to the big time. NXT is not the big time. It may be booked like the big time. It may feel like the big time with the takeovers and the matches and the great weekly shows, but it's not Raw or SmackDown. Including people in the Hall of Fame like a Zayn or a Revival or a Bayley just because they helped make NXT what it is today, that's not enough. It's not nearly enough. Because they have not done anything on the main roster so far, they're not worthy of being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, if you want an NXT wing, or for NXT to create their own Hall of Fame, which I still don't agree with, then maybe. At the end of the day, maybe. But that's an NXT exclusive thing. The WWE Hall of Fame largely, if not altogether, takes into account what you've done on a main brand. I don't want to say just WWE, because like I just said, there's a lot of people in there that have done work outside of WWE, in WCW, ECW, and other territories. But NXT, it's a territory, so to speak, but it's still developmental. And it's not a Raw or a SmackDown. So no, they should not be considered for the Hall of Fame in the future just because of what they accomplished down in developmental. Joe's second question, is it too soon to be doing our Buddy Murphy and Mustafa Ali again? Personally, I'd have Buddy Murphy face the likes of Tony Nese, Cedric Alexander, or some potential new challengers before eventually dropping to Mustafa Ali at WrestleMania next year in a match that would hopefully come close to their amazing no disqualification match from earlier this year. I like that a lot. Like you said, Murphy and Ali had a great series of matches earlier on this year. I think maybe around May or June. It wasn't too long ago. They had an awesome no DQ match. To go back to the feud so soon, I didn't even really think of that because I completely forgot about those matches, even though they are fucking amazing. That wasn't the first thing I thought of when I thought of, Murphy and Ali for the Cruiserweight Championship coming up soon. I do like your idea a lot more. Ali should be the ultimate destination as Cruiserweight Champion. I thought he would be the one to beat Alexander ultimately for the championship after he lost to Alexander at WrestleMania. But obviously they went with Murphy, as they should have. I mean, the guy should have won the championship at Super Showdown. It was a great match. The crowd was thoroughly behind him. Murphy was the perfect person to take that championship from Alexander. Now, that being said, Ali, I mean, no one else really on that roster makes sense to beat Murphy for that belt other than Ali, given their history. And I think Ali beat Buddy Murphy, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he did. I'm pretty sure Ali beat Murphy in their ultimate no disqualification match on 205 Live earlier this year. So it makes sense for him to go back for the gold, but so soon, I don't think he's beating Buddy Murphy whenever they face off for the championship. Murphy's got a few other challengers, like you said. Take on Tony Nese, take on Cedric Alexander in a rematch from Super Showdown, which should be awesome because their matches are always great too. You could do Buddy Murphy and Lio Rush, Buddy Murphy and Kalisto, which I guess they've done multiple times by now, but you could still do it, I guess, if you want to. Buddy Murphy and Hideo Itami. Buddy Murphy and, I mean, there's a few other people you can go with, but those are the most prominent names that I can think of. Buddy Murphy and TJP. I mean, whether he's a heel or a face, he's technically a heel, so he would have to be facing faces. But still, I feel like, to go down that route first and have him defend against those people would be better than just rushing right into Murphy and Ali and not saving that match for a bigger stage like WrestleMania, like you said, where Ali can take that championship from Murphy. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. Ali could very well end up taking that title from Murphy in the very near future. I would not do that. I would give Murphy a much longer reign. The guy just won the belt a month ago in Australia. I would have him wait until at least WrestleMania to have him drop the belt. But at the same time, will Ali lose here and then get another, shot at the strap at WrestleMania? I'm not sure what they do. Because if it's not Ali taking the championship off of Murphy, then who is it? Hopefully not. I mean, I love Alexander, but he got his run. He was champion for like 6 or 7 months. So it's time to move on to fresher faces. I don't know who's going to be the ultimate person to beat Buddy Murphy for that Cruiserweight Championship. No one person on that 205 Live roster screams to me as a potential Cruiserweight champion. Maybe Lio Rush, but he's a heel, and Murphy's a heel, so I don't know how that would work. I still say Ali, so I would hold off till WrestleMania for the title change. I hope they don't rush into it anytime soon. And that's not a pun either, Lio Rush, but, Lio Rush would be a fine choice as well, but at the same time, I think I would wait until WrestleMania to put the belt on Ali because he deserves it more than anyone right now, including Murphy. The third question from Joe, do you think it's ridiculous that the Street Profits have yet to receive a tag title match on a TakeOver or any match at a TakeOver? Both guys have proven that they can go in the ring, particularly Montez. They have a limitless charisma and as a team, and most importantly, they're probably one of the only teams who would not get booed against the Undisputed Era. You make a lot of great points. I am absolutely with you. I love the Street Profits. I mean, there's really no reason for them to be at a TakeOver if they're not going for the championships. Now, I know they have War Games coming up, and there's a few teams on that show, like the War Raiders, who have yet to get a TakeOver or a title match on I don't think the Street Profits have even gone for the gold once. The War Raiders at least got a title shot recently on NXT TV. The Street Profits have been around now for well over a year, since the summer of 2017. They have yet to get a single title shot, and they've won more matches than they won. Or lost, rather. They've won more matches than they lost. And I might be wrong on that, but just based off how they've been booked. I mean, they lost a few matches to the Authors of Pain. They lost to, who was it? TM6 won the Mighty a few times. But by and large, these guys win more often than they lose. And they should be given a championship match at some point down the road. So that being said, I've always said that they should be the team to take those titles from the Undisputed Era. Now, I know their reign was interrupted briefly when Mustache Mountain won the championships for like a couple days, I think, earlier this year, back in June at the UK tapings. But beyond that, I think it's a lot better to have the Street Profits be the ones to ultimately dethrone the Undisputed Era as champions than the War Raiders, who I like. I like the War Raiders. I like the Mighty. I like Heavy Machinery, who have also not gotten... I mean, they got one NXT Tag Team title shot last summer against the Authors of Pain, but that was it. I would still go with Street Profits as the team to win those belts. Now, currently they're busy as the Evolve Tag Team Champions, and that's cool and all, but I do think all roads should lead to Street Profits beating the Undisputed Era for those tag team titles. I would say preferably at the WrestleMania TakeOver. Now, at the TakeOver coming up, War Games, they have the War Games main event. The tag titles aren't being defended. We still have one more TakeOver after that before the WrestleMania weekend one. It's going to be, what is it? It's going to be fucking, not Philadelphia, Arizona, Phoenix, whatever, over the Royal Rumble weekend. I mean, I guess you could do it there, but I would say the title change for a bigger occasion. I would have Undisputed Era drop the NXT Tag Team titles to the Street Profits over WrestleMania weekend in New York. Because they're going to be in New York. I mean, they feel like a New York tag team. I don't know where they're from, but they feel like that feels like a fitting location to give the Street Profits the NXT Tag Team titles. The crowd would be behind them. I would love to see it. And start doing the chase now. They just recently beat the Mighty. Over the next couple of months, tell a story with these guys that they have their sights set in becoming NXT Tag Team Champions. So ultimately, they become champions at TakeOver New York, and then from there, Undisputed Era gets called up to the main roster, which I know isn't going to excite many people. I know that them being on Raw or SmackDown would be cool, don't get me wrong. But I do think a lot of people agree that they would be better off in NXT just based off how NXT talents are being booked after being called up to the main roster. Look no further than, I mean, I know AOP just won the Raw Tag Team titles, but they were just an afterthought for the longest time after being called up. Sanity, where the fuck were they before they showed up on SmackDown on Tuesday? So, Undisputed Era, they're a different breed. There's 4 guys as you know, compared to like 2 or 3. They're fucking limitless charisma. They're fucking awesome. So maybe there is a chance they succeed on the main roster. Specifically Adam Cole. But anyway, going back to what I was saying earlier, that I think having these guys be the team to become the tag team champions from to the Street Profits, to have them be the team to take those titles from the Undisputed Era would be the best route to take. There's a lot of great teams in NXT, but no team is more deserving of a title run than the Street Profits. I do not want them to become the next Enzo and Cass. Enzo and Cass got a bunch of title shots. The Street Profits have yet to get fucking one. I'm hoping they win the championships at least at one point during their NXT tenure. And I feel like they could get called up, and I said this a while ago, that of them, Heavy Machinery, and who was it, the War Raiders someone asked me about, like of those teams, which team would be the most successful? No, it was the Mighty. The Mighty, Heavy Machinery, or the Street Profits. Which team do you think would be the most successful? I said the Street Profits. Again, like you said, Montez is great in the ring. Dawkins isn't bad either. They're an awesome team. A lot of charisma. They're over with the audience in NXT. They feel a lot like Enzo and Cass, just better in the ring and a way better gimmick. So why wouldn't you run with these guys as your tag team champions at some point? So again, I would give them the belts either at the TakeOver over Royal Rumble weekend, but I would specifically wait till WrestleMania weekend, maybe because just I'll be there, just because I'm biased, but whatever. And also the New York setting, I think, would be an awesome place to give these guys the gold. So that's my prediction. We'll go back to the show many months down the road from here, and we'll say, was I right or wrong? Probably wrong. But I do think the Street Profits should be the team to take those titles from Bobby Fish, who are the champions, Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly. I think they're still doing the Freebird rule, but I do think they should be the next NXT Tag Team Champions. In Joe's last question here, top 3 favorite and least favorite movies of 2018. I love questions like this because you guys know I love movies. I've seen a lot of movies this year. I don't think 2018, in my opinion, has been a particularly strong year for movies, at least in the last couple of months. I got to include in the top 3 right off the bat Halloween. I thought Halloween was awesome. I talked about it here on the show a few weeks ago. I also discussed it briefly on Wrestle Rant Radio with Alexis. We reviewed it for a couple of minutes. It was a great movie. There was a lot of hype around it dating back to last year when they first announced the sequel or the remake, whatever, for the movie. And it did very, very well. It got great reviews. I thought they did an awesome job with it. And I thoroughly loved it. I really fucking loved that movie. To the point where I saw it twice, and I do not see many movies twice. So Halloween was great. That's got to be my top 3. But before Halloween, there were a lot of movies I thought were very disappointing, which I'll talk about in the latter half of this question. But in terms of my favorite movies of 2018, Halloween is up there. How can I do a list like this and not include Infinity War? I mean, hopefully you guys know by now that movie was fucking awesome and is my 3rd favorite movie of all time, surpassing Guardians of the Galaxy from earlier this year, to the point where I saw Infinity War in theaters 4.5 times. And I say 4.5 because they went to the last showing. The last time I saw it in theaters, I saw it for half a show. I remember 3/4, I guess. I missed the first 20 minutes and I missed the last half hour, and the movie's 2.5 hours. So I technically saw 2/3 of it. But still, I love the movie. I saw it more times in theaters than any other movie I've ever seen ever. The last movie that I had beaten the record for was Guardians of the Galaxy, which I'd seen 3 times in theaters back in 2014. The first movie, not the sequel, which was also very good. But Infinity War has got to be number 1. I mean, that's easily my favorite movie from 2018 because it's my 3rd favorite movie of all time, right up there with Ghostbusters and Back to the Future. And then lastly, the 3rd one may not be as an obvious of a choice here, but I loved Incredibles 2. That might be my 3rd favorite movie from 2018. Again, a lot of hype around it. I thought it lived up to the expectations. It was very entertaining. I thought it told a good story. I don't know. I really liked Incredibles 2 a lot. And I had been looking forward to Incredibles 2 since they teased it back with the first movie at the end of the first movie back in 2004. I remember seeing a sneak preview of the first Incredibles movie in November of 2004. 14 years ago, almost exactly. And then 14 years later, I get to see this one. Also another sneak preview at my work, an employee showing, which was great too. So, again, lived up to the hype. I thought it was a great, great movie. And it did really, really well. I think it might be the highest grossing animated movie of all time. Or it's definitely up there. I saw something along those lines when it came out. But if it's not Incredibles, I mean, there's also some honorable mentions here. I love Deadpool 2. Wasn't my favorite movie of the year, but I thought it was really entertaining. The first one was still better, but Deadpool 2 was still great. Deadpool 2... Ready Player One was an underrated gem. I think a lot of people know that movie was awesome, but I think it does not get talked about enough as a great movie from this year. That was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed Christopher Robin. Wasn't amazing by any means, but it was very entertaining, especially as a Winnie the Pooh fan as a kid. I thought that movie was real good. There's got to be more movies that I saw that I thought were good. I thought Ant-Man and the Wasp was very good too, a lot better than some people were saying it was. But yeah, I enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp. Venom was another one. Wouldn't be in my top 3, but I thought it was really, really good. So those are my top 3 favorite movies and some honorable mentions. My least 3 favorite movies, and again, this is just going off of pure memory here. There might be more. But Hellfest, I saw that. I didn't have high hopes for that anyway. I really just kind of saw it on a whim, and it fucking sucked. That movie was awful. Bad story, bad acting. It was 90 minutes long. Good God, that movie sucked. I had a fun time seeing it and making fun of it because it was so bad. Predator, same thing. That's also my top 3 least favorite movies of this year. Predator, that was a movie I had high hopes for. I liked the original. I thought this one would be equally entertaining. It wasn't. I thought it sucked. Again, a shorter movie, just a lot of weird moments and just a bad story. A lot of things about the movie that didn't make sense. So Predator, Hellfest, and then some people might not like this inclusion here, this choice, but Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I thought that one sucked too. Now, don't say it's because, you don't like the Jurassic Park movies. Why wouldn't you like this one or whatever? I could see why you wouldn't like this one. I liked the original Jurassic Park movies. I liked 1 and 2 and 3 were, fine, but I really liked the first one. I even liked the most recent remake. I thought the one they came out with in 2015, I liked that one a lot too. I really liked that Jurassic World. The most recent one I thought sucked. The acting was weird. Again, a lot of things about it just didn't make any sense. And I felt like it was a waste of time. Now, again, I enjoyed it for the experience. I think all 3 of those movies I saw employee showings for. I saw it ahead of time before they were released. I saw Jurassic World, Predator, Hellfest. I saw sneak peek preview showings for. as well as Avengers and Incredibles 2. Not Halloween, I almost did. I saw that on the Friday or Thursday it came out, but not a sneak peek, whatever, at my work. All the other movies I did, though. Fallen Kingdom, that one sucked. So I got to include Fallen Kingdom in there. Other movies, I wouldn't put this in the top 3, but Han Solo was very disappointing. That movie legit almost put me to sleep. That's how, I mean, I wasn't excited for that anyway, but that was a very boring movie in my opinion. No one is talking about it all these months later, and for the right reasons, rightfully so, just because it wasn't really that great of a movie. I can't really remember many other movies I've seen this year. I saw Greatest Showman again, which came out in 2017. Jumanji I saw this year. That came out in 2017. Skyscraper I thought was fine. I enjoyed it. It wasn't amazing, but it was fine. What even else came out? I don't even know. I honestly don't even remember. I saw First Man. That was good. Kind of boring, but it was good. I don't know. I saw The Meg. The Meg I thought was good. It was an enjoyable movie. Not great, but it was good. And that's about it. And I know I've seen other movies. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. But, yeah, those would probably lead the list of my favorite and least favorite movies of 2018. I know we still have like another month and a half left, but I do not see anything else coming out in the remainder of 2018 that would eclipse my top 3 favorite movies. I know we got Aquaman coming out. Who gives a shit? I really don't care about Aquaman. The Spider-Man animated movie, it looks good, but I'm not going to go see it. I don't really care about the animated movies. The animated Spider-Man movies or the animated superhero movies. I don't really care. So I won't be going to see that. Wreck-It Ralph, I saw the first one. That should be good. The sequel coming out should be good. But I don't know if it's going to be better than Incredibles 2. So my top 3 favorite movies, probably definitively of 2018, Halloween, Avengers Infinity War, and Incredibles 2. In top to bottom, it would be Infinity War, then Halloween, then Incredibles 2. Captain Sunshine from YouTube, their question was, all I have to say about the Raw UK show this week is that I gladly enjoyed the Angle-McIntyre match and remembered how much I want a version of this match with Shane McMahon, where someone just kicks Shane's ass instead of Shane's usual stick of actual competitive match, where Shane only loses if he misses one jump. Who would be perfect for destroying him, though? That's a good question. That is something that should have happened a long time ago. Shane has yet to have a match where anyone just beats the shit out of him for 20 minutes, or 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Why would they do that with Angle and not Shane? They protect Shane way more than they do Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle lost to fucking Dolph Ziggler in 5 minutes of Crown Jewel, and then got his ass kicked by Drew McIntyre on Raw this week. So any real appeal on a Kurt Angle in-ring return, at least in a singles capacity, is virtually gone, and that sucks. But he's better in the ring at this point, at this stage of his career, than Shane McMahon, who was never really an active competitor to begin with. So I don't know why they're doing that with Shane and not Kurt Angle, but with Shane, they really should have done that at Hell in a Cell last year. The match that Kevin Owens and Shane had, I thought was good, but let's be honest, Kevin Owens at that point was riding a wave of momentum, coming off the beatdown of Shane's father, Vince McMahon, on SmackDown. They really should have had Owens go in there, beat the shit out of Kevin, or really beat the shit out of Shane, of himself, beat the shit out of Shane for like 10 minutes to 15 minutes. And yeah, it would have been a disappointing main event, but who the fuck cares? Like, that's what they should have done, because Shane is no Superman. I hate the fact that he's fucking, better than half the roster. He's the best in the world, which I know is done to build to Raw versus SmackDown at Survivor Series. But at the end of the day, with Shane McMahon, the guy is not a Superman. Why are they booking him like he's this ultimate babyface? He's this resilient babyface that can, withstand all this punishment and just endure everything that the rest of the roster dishes out on him. It makes no sense. He was in the ring with The Undertaker for like fucking 30 minutes of WrestleMania 32, a match that sucked. He actually came close to beating AJ at WrestleMania, which is a joke. He had that match with Daniel Bryan, Shane, and Sami Zayn this year. Like, at King of the Ring, where was it? Was it King of the Ring? No, it was Survivor Series that I was watching. Shane McMahon was in Kurt Angle's ankle lock for like 5 minutes. Like, in a perfect world, in an ideal world, he would tap out in like 10 seconds, if that. Because the guy should not be booked like a bigger threat than everyone else in the roster. It makes no sense. So I would have done what you're suggesting with Shane. I would have done that last year at Hell in a Cell with Kevin Owens. But if we're talking about like right now, it's got to be someone from SmackDown. A heel, preferably. There's Shinsuke. Probably Joe. Just have Joe go in there and beat the fuck out of him. Just have Joe go in there and destroy Shane McMahon and get him off TV. I like Shane, but you know what? It was actually better off when he wasn't on TV every week. When he wasn't on TV from like April to like September or October, it was awesome. It was great. We never really saw Shane. It was awesome because he was a commissioner, but he was heard from but rarely seen. That's what commissioners should do. They should not be on the TV show every fucking week. That's what a GM is for. So we don't really need Shane around every week to accomplish that. That's what the GM is there for. That's the purpose that they serve. Nonetheless, from a current standpoint, who would I have go in there and just rough up Shane and just kick the shit out of him? Samoa Joe, because I feel like that would be very entertaining. Moving on to the Facebook questions here. First from Andre G. The first question was, what are your thoughts on the team of Nia Jax and Tamina? Good God, I could not care less. I don't care about Nia Jax. I don't care about Tamina. They're both fucking abysmal in the ring. They are atrocious. Nia Jax and Tamina is the tag team I never knew I didn't want until I saw it. Does that make sense? I think it does. Nia Jax and Tamina are the tag team that never should have been, but we got anyway, for whatever reason. Now, I know they're probably building to a women's division in WWE, which I still don't really care to see, to be honest with you. People are going to hate on me for that, but you know what? I'll combine that with your next question. Do you like the idea of a women's tag team division? That was your second question here. I'll combine the two questions into one here. I don't think a women's tag team division is practical, at least not right now. I'll probably write an article about this at some point, but I really do not think a women's tag team division is a feasible idea, at least at this point in time. I don't want the brands intermeshing. They're going to get their own show, which is the last thing that we need right now. We get plenty of women's segments on Raw and SmackDown. You don't need to take them off Raw and SmackDown and give them their own division, because they're obviously going to be on Raw and SmackDown, because no one would watch the fucking show that was exclusive to the network. It's like 205 Live. It doesn't matter how good of a show it is. People do not watch 205 Live. A lot of people do not watch 205 Live. So, that being said, Nia Jax and Tamina, oh God, that is disaster written all over it. I'm not sure what's worse, a feud between the two or a tag team with the two. That just sounds awful. But yeah, women's tag team division, what would it be? Fucking Nia Jax and Tamina versus Sasha Banks and Bayley every week? Versus the Riot Squad? We get that shit anyway. It would be the same teams facing each other every week. And on SmackDown, what do we have? Mandy and Sonya, who they're teasing tension with anyway. We have the Iconics, who are annoying as all shit, and no one gives a fuck about them. Asuka and Naomi, I guess. I mean, they were a team for a cup of coffee going into Super Showdown. We haven't seen either of them since, for the most part. So, I don't know where you go with these girls, but I mean, the tag team division, to know that's like, oh, we want a women's tag team division. Well, be careful what you wish for, because we would get the same 2 or 3 matches every fucking week. And they need more women if they really want a women's tag team division. They have enough women to, fill up Raw and SmackDown television time, and that's awesome and all. But if you really want to do a women's tag team division, you need more women in one show, which they don't have, which they shouldn't have. I don't like the idea of getting rid of the brand split. TNA tried it. They did as well as they could with it before they put the fucking belts on Eric Young, and then it died a death after that. They tried, they failed, they moved on. WWE, why it's taken them so long to try it, probably because women's wrestling was a joke for such a long time in this company. I don't know, I just don't think it's a good idea. I think now might be as good of a time as any to do it, but at the same time, I don't really want to see the Raw and SmackDown girls going at it when they don't have to, kind of ruining and blurring that line between the brand split that it's already been blurred multiple times by now. And to do it any further is kind of a mistake. But we'd get the same matches. Is there really a draw for women's tag team wrestling? I honestly don't think there is. Women's wrestling is a draw. Women's tag team wrestling, I know equality and all this other stuff. If you want to do that, you need more women. It's not a thing against the women that I have. I love the women's division, don't get me wrong, but you do not have enough women to do a women's tag team division. It's getting to the point where the company is passing out signs at shows that say, we want women's tag titles. The fans are not bringing those signs. It's fucking the company passing out those signs, telling you that you want a tag team division. Did you want a tag team division? Well, I really don't. I don't know about you. Maybe a majority of people feel that we do. I don't know. Just from my personal standpoint, I do not think like it's a feasible idea at this point in time with the amount of women they have on Raw and SmackDown, and a lot of those women mean nothing. They don't do anything with those women as it is. Why would giving them more championships, how would that accomplish anything? It makes the current titles feel even more irrelevant. We have enough championships as it is. We don't need more titles. We don't need more fucking championships in this company. Make the most of who and what you have. They don't have to be battling over gold for the feud to be meaningful. You can have a great Asuka and Naomi feud or an Asuka and a Charlotte feud that's not over a set of tag team titles and still have it mean something. So, we'll see where they go with it, but as of right now, I'm not the biggest fan of the idea. And Andre's next question, blast from the past. How would the La Resistance fare in today's tag team division? That's a good question. I mean, I feel like they could do well, but at the end of the day, they'd likely be just another fucking revival. I can't remember many, if any, great matches that the La Resistance tag team had in WWE. They were a good gimmick. They were, foreign wrestlers. They got that easy, cheap heat. It made sense, but there's a lot of teams they're doing a whole lot of nothing with. And I don't think bringing them in would be any better. Like, I'm not saying bring them back, but if they came up in today's WWE, I don't think much would change. I think they'd be booked as, a dominant heel faction for a while, because that Vince loves his foreigner gimmicks. But at the end of the day, I think they'd end up by the way of the Revival and the B Team and the Ascension, just a bunch of losers. Anderson and Gallows aren't even on TV. Sanity, by and large, aren't even on TV. So I don't think putting these guys in in the tag team division, in today's tag team division, would really matter much at all. I think they would end up the way by the of the Revival and all these other teams that the company is mainly doing nothing with. Mr. Marceau at RJ_Marceau from the Twitter machine. Any chance Becky Lynch wins at Survivor Series? Maybe Charlotte Flair tries to stop Becky from using dirty tactics and costs Ronda Rousey the match, planting the seeds for a WrestleMania 35 match. There's a small chance. I don't see it happening. What you just suggested, I've seen people bring that up. I would not have Ronda lose anytime soon. I love Becky Lynch. I know this is probably the wrong time to do this match just because Becky's on a roll right now. Ronda's on a roll right now. A non-finish would be a better idea. Becky should, would I be upset if she won? No, but I feel like Ronda should be kept undefeated for as long as possible. This is the same woman that went undefeated in the UFC for fucking years before finally being beaten. So to have Ronda lose at this point in time would be a mistake considering she's only been here for like 6 or 7 months. And I know it wouldn't be clean. It would be by, via interference from Charlotte Flair, inadvertent interference. But it could also set the stage for a four horsewomen tag team match. I don't know why Becky and Charlotte would want to team up again. But maybe Charlotte, maybe Becky earned her respect after beating her clean at Evolution. I'm not sure. I've seen people suggest that. I don't know where you would do the 4-on-4 tag team match. Maybe at the Rumble, because that's the only inter-brand pay-per-view that we have coming up. We have the other pay-per-views are inter-promotional too, but Royal Rumble can be Raw and SmackDown together. TLC would be a fucking joke, but you can do the other one. You could do Baszler, Rousey, Shafir, and Duke, the 4 horsewomen of UFC, of MMA, versus the 4 horsewomen of WWE, Banks, Bayley, Becky, and Charlotte. I guess at the Rumble, that's more of like a Survivor Series match, but they're not doing that at Survivor Series, so I don't know. But I do think that there is a chance that Becky could win. I'm not counting on it. I think Ronda will win decisively. People are saying, well, you can't have Becky lose, clean 1, 2, 3. Well, you can. It's not a good idea to, but you can and she will. So it's like, oh, why would Becky lose now? Why would Becky lose clean 1, 2, 3? That makes no sense. Well, this company is the king of making no sense. Dude, they had fucking Shane McMahon become the best in the world in Saudi Arabia at Crown Jewel. What is going to stop them from having Becky Lynch tap the Rousey in like 5 or 10 minutes? I'm sure the match will be competitive. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure it's going to be competitive. If Nikki can get a 10-minute match at a Ronda Rousey, if Nikki Bella can last as long as she did against Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch should last twice that time. They should get plenty of time for their match because it could be a real good match. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's the best idea to have Rousey lose right now, and I just don't think it's going to happen. I guess you could have Becky win and then lead to a rematch at WrestleMania because Ronda would have to get her win back eventually, but I don't think that would be the case because what you're suggesting here is that Charlotte gets the match at WrestleMania. Where do Becky and Ronda collide again? Maybe not anytime soon, maybe down the road, but I guess I would just take the standard route of having Charlotte win the Women's Royal Rumble and then having Rousey reign as Raw Women's Champion through WrestleMania. I feel like that's the easiest route to take. It's the most logical. You could do what you're suggesting here by having Charlotte interfere at Survivor Series, and that prevents Rousey from taking a clean loss, and it gives Becky a big win. I could certainly see that happening, but at the end of the day, I do not see Rousey losing. I don't see them wanting to have Rousey lose. I know they're very high on Becky right now, as they should be. She's been a great performer. She's been the MVP of this company for months now. I do not see them regarding Becky. I don't see them regarding Becky as a higher priority than Ronda by having Becky beat Ronda. I do not see that happening. At Real Brett Vresic, that's how you pronounce it, from Twitter, is putting the Universal Championship back on Brock Lesnar a good decision, or is it going to be the same as last year? Did they just put the championship on him because of the possibility of him being a champion in the WWE and UFC at the same time? Yeah, it's a bad decision. I think it's going to be a lot like last year where he's just around. When he's around, he's not really around any more than he was before. He was around more in 2017 than he was in 2018. There was no reason to have Brock hold the championship from WrestleMania 34 to SummerSlam. Roman should have beat him for the belt to WrestleMania and just have been fucking done with it so we can move on. Why they waited till SummerSlam, I'll never know. I know they wanted to do the whole, they had the whole, Roman Reigns' road to redemption, which didn't work. People still booed him when he won the belt. I know people didn't like Brock being champion. Didn't make a lick of a difference for Roman at all. So I don't know why they waited that long, and I don't think this time will be any different. I could go on a 20-minute rant why it's a bad idea for Brock to be champion again. But I think moreover than anything else, which is what people aren't talking about, is that Brock at this point has been established as unstoppable. And they've gotten to a point where it's like, can anyone feasibly beat Brock Lesnar? Braun could have, but they've now had him lose to Brock fucking twice in one-on-one matches. He also lost to Brock at the Rumble, at SummerSlam, in multi-man matches. The guy's a loser. Braun Strowman is a loser. He's a loser. In storyline, the guy cannot win when it matters most. So he's a loser. Ergo, he's a loser. That being said, I could see them trying to tell the story that he's in chase mode, he's got to bounce back. No one cares. At this point, I'm ready to move on. I don't really want to see Braun become champion anymore. At the, going in the Crown Jewel, yeah, I know there was a chance, and then he lost again decisively in fucking 4 or 5 F5s in like 2 minutes. It's time to move on to someone else. It could be Seth Rollins. It could be Drew McIntyre, maybe. It could be someone from NXT like a Matt Riddle or an Aleister Black. I'd go with Aleister Black, but Matt Riddle's great too. I think he just debuted, so it would be way too soon for that to happen. And he's also a lot smaller than Brock, but they both have the UFC background. That's why I say that. Anyway, I do think there's a good chance that they did what they did because not only is Brock the bigger name, and not only is Braun apparently injured as well. I mean, he's still competing, of course, but he's still apparently hurt. He's still hurt reportedly with like dealing with bad shoulder issues or something. I don't know what it is. Maybe bad knees. I forgot what the injury was that he was suffering from. But anyway, I do think there's a good chance that they did what they did because they want Brock to go in there and become a dual champion, a WWE and UFC heavyweight champion. I don't see him beating Cormier anyway. That's the problem. All of this would have been for naught if they're putting the belt on Brock just to have him beat Cormier. I mean, not have him because it's a fucking real fight. To see him beat Cormier so he can hold both belts. Which he's not going to do in UFC. He's not going to go in there and bring the Universal Championship with him. Brock could not give two shits about being Universal Champion. UFC does not give two shits about Brock being Universal Champion. That does not up his stock in UFC. The guy is already a big name with or without that title. He should not be Universal Champion right now. He should be gone, preparing for that fight against Cormier, and not worrying about WWE. To do both at once, I feel like is a very bad idea. Because, he disappeared for a long time after WrestleMania 32 a few years ago because he had to go prepare for his fight against Mark Hunt at UFC 200 it was, or 2 whatever. So the fight with Cormier, I don't think it's official yet, but I think it's being talked about for early 2019. He's fighting at Survivor Series, 2 months away. Is he really going to put in that much effort to, to put in to have a great match? Because at the risk of getting injured, I don't think so. I really don't. So I think putting the belt back on Brock is a big mistake, huge mistake even. And if it's just for, we want him to become a dual champion, hold gold at the same time, does anyone really care? Does anyone really care about Brock holding UFC and WWE gold simultaneously? Yeah, it's a cool stat, I guess, because no one's ever done it before. But still, it's like, WWE fans don't care about that. UFC fans sure as hell do not care about Brock being a champion in both worlds. No one really gives a shit. So either have him do one or the other and just fucking move on. At Reborn Again from Twitter, will WWE ever drop the heel authority figure gimmick in favor of a more performance-driven product? They should. Will they? Doubtful. They've done it now for 20 years with Vince McMahon, almost 21 years to the day when Vince McMahon, quote-unquote, went heel at the Montreal Screwjob, which wasn't a work, by the way. I think it was 21 years from the 9th, so that being Friday. It was shortly thereafter, like after WrestleMania the following year, that Vince became he became a full-on heel authority figure, which he is the best one to ever do it. Vicky Guerrero was good. Eric Bischoff was great. No one is a better heel authority figure, though, than Vincent Kennedy McMahon. They've had people try. Mike Adamle, John Laurinaitis, fucking Baron Corbin. They did the authority shit. None of them are as good as Vincent McMahon. So, Mr. McMahon. You can't go back to those times. They shouldn't go back to those times, but they still insist on having heel authority figures, whether it be Shane. I don't know whether he's a heel or a face or what the fuck he is. But Baron Corbin, Stephanie, good God, it's time to move on. I mean, you can't have a product that's built solely around the in-ring action. I mean, obviously you have to tell stories and do promos and stuff, but there are more stories to be told that don't involve heel authority figures. You can tell great stories without having a heel authority figure, which is what they should go back to. Not the heel authority figure bullshit, but having stories that don't revolve, that don't, surround and focus on a heel authority figure, because we've had this shit for almost 20 years, and they don't know how to do anything else but that. And by this point, it has long overstayed its welcome, by at least 10 years or so. John's second question, how much of a chance do you think the rumored Charlotte versus Rousey match has to main event WrestleMania 35? Very good. I know I saw this morning that from Cage Side Seats, I think, they had said that the chances of that happening, not the match, but just Rousey, period, main eventing WrestleMania 35 are extremely high, especially considering Roman will likely not be back by then. So I don't know why you wouldn't do Charlotte versus Rousey as the main event of that show. Now, I'm not saying let's do that as the main event because, go women power, go the women, woohoo, they should have the first ever women's WrestleMania main event, which they should, but I don't want them to do it just for the sake of doing it. It has to make sense. It has to be the biggest match on the card, the match that people are going to pay to see more than any other. And based off the current card for the show that I've heard of and seen and whatever, that feels like the biggest match on the entire show. Now, something could come along between now and then that eclipses Charlotte and Rousey. Maybe it's Becky and Rousey part 2. I don't know. But if it's a women's match with Rousey, I feel like Rousey should be the centerpiece of this WrestleMania. It makes the most sense. She's really, really popular right now. Now would be as good of a time as any to have the main event be a women's match at WrestleMania. I think Charlotte and Rousey has a very good chance of main eventing that show. Probably for the Raw Women's Championship. And I would do it. I would do it as the main event. I think it's a huge draw. And I think the match could be really, really good too. So I think the chances are extremely high of that happening. And I'm in full favor of it. John's next question, has AJ Styles' current WWE Championship run been great or a flop, basing it on booking, match quality, etc.? Of the two, it's got to be great. I think the positives have outweighed the negatives for AJ Styles' run as WWE Champion. Now, I know he has not main evented a pay-per-view as WWE Champion since Fastlane of 2018, which was back in March, and also a SmackDown exclusive show. And not just in 2018, but 2017, 2016, the WWE Championship has yet to main event a single co-branded pay-per-view, which is a problem. It's no surprise, but it's a problem. That WWE obviously sees Raw as the bigger and better show, as their flagship show. It's their baby. So why would they position the WWE Championship as a more important title or being on the level of the Universal Championship? They should, but they don't, whatever. That being said, has it been great or a flop? I mean, the matches have spoken for themselves. AJ, I just got done talking about this last night on the 2 Out of 3 Falls podcast that I do with Randy Cruz every week. We just got done talking about how AJ really has not had that one classic match as WWE Champion. He's had a lot of great matches, not one amazing, outstanding 5-star Matt classic. He had a lot of very good to great matches with Samoa Joe, Shinsuke Nakamura, Daniel Bryan most recently on SmackDown. But overall, he has not had that one truly memorable match, which is it sucks, but maybe he'd be more determined to put forth that effort if it was the main event, if he was given more time, if the creative was better. I'm not exactly sure what to pinpoint it on, but that's a knock against the championship run. Overall, though, it's a year as champion. It should not be discredited. He defends the championship at least once every single month, unlike Brock Lesnar. He's faced everyone who has stepped up to challenge him, from Jinder Mahal, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura, Rusev, Samoa Joe, Daniel Bryan. He's beaten them all. And now he's looking to take on, Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series, which I don't see him winning that match at all. But, still, he's got a few other people he can defend against in the future, including Andrade, Randy Orton. They also have, who's the other person I was thinking of? The Miz, obviously. Miz, Orton, Andrade, all potential future rivals for AJ as WWE champion. So it's cool that he's been able to remain relevant as champion, even despite not being the, center focus of the show more often than not, or the entire company, which, again, is no surprise when it comes to the pay-per-views. But he's had great matches. He's cut great promos. People are still very much into AJ. He's not being booed. He's not being completely overshadowed. He still feels like the centerpiece, the focal point of SmackDown more often than not, despite being kind of overlooked at times by like Shane McMahon or a Daniel Bryan or, a few other people on the show or whatever. But still, AJ has helped make SmackDown what it is today. And I think a year-long WWE Championship reign should not be discredited. It absolutely should be respected and acknowledged and admired for lasting as long as it has, and for AJ even being here, a 1 year long reigning WWE champion, is something I don't think a lot of people ever expected out of AJ. I don't think anyone expected AJ to hold the championship for that long, let alone 6 months to 5 months or whatever. He's been champion before. He had a great run back from 2016 to 2017, but I don't think anyone ever expected him to regain the gold, let alone hold it for a year. And he is by far the best performer on the show, so it makes sense to have your best performer on the brand be the world champion. What a fucking concept, I know. But he's still selling merch. People are still very much into AJ, so it's not like it's overstayed its welcome. Now, granted, would I have liked to have seen Shinsuke or Samoa Joe as WWE champion? Absolutely. But AJ, at the end of the day, is still the far and away the best guy they have on that brand. So to have him run off as champion for a solid year makes sense to me. There's really nothing to argue against that, and he still has plenty of challengers to go ahead in the remaining months of 2018 and beyond. Like I said, he has Andrade, Randy Orton, The Miz. I do see him ultimately dropping the title to The Miz. That would be my pick. At the same time, though, they do have AJ as champion, and there's so many other ways they can go with him as champion before he ultimately drops the belt, whenever that might be. But I also do want to say this, that I do think that having him hold the championship for this long is not to spite CM Punk, because at this point, maybe that's a factor. Some people are going to play conspiracy theorist here and say the only reason he's been champion for a year is so he can beat Punk's record. Is it even really a record, though? Like, Brock Lesnar held the Universal Championship for over 500 days last year, for earlier this year, whatever. If anything, Brock broke that record as the longest reigning world champion of the fucking modern era, whatever the hell that even means. He's not the longest reigning WWE champion of all time. Maybe since the 80s or the 70s or whatever. Yeah, sure, that. And I know Brock's reign was with the Universal Championship and not the WWE Championship. Still, though, I just don't think it really makes that much of a difference. I think they should have him hold on to that gold, have him hold on to the championship for as long as humanly possible until someone better comes along, or someone that makes just as much sense to be champion beats him for that belt. So until then, I would keep the belt on AJ, and overall, though, I would say his championship run has been a big positive for SmackDown. It's been the one consistently entertaining thing on the show. And even though some of the matches have been, some more underwhelming than others, and some have not exactly been 5-star classics, AJ has held up his end of the bargain very well, cutting great promos and having awesome matches week to week and pay-per-view to pay-per-view, despite not being showcased as the guy on each of those shows. Despite not being the main event, he still goes out there and almost always has the best match of the night on every single pay-per-view he takes part in. Whether it's the matches with Nakamura, with Samoa Joe, Rusev, Owens, and Zayn, he almost always steals the show every single time. And there is something to be said for that as well. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, could you see WWE having The Miz and Daniel Bryan win the tag team titles from the Bar? Wouldn't be the worst idea. SmackDown has a tag team division they should probably focus on. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea because it does further that feud with The Miz and Bryan. I still like my idea of having Bryan win the not the Universal Championship, the fucking Royal Rumble match. I don't know why I said the Universal Championship. Have Bryan win the Royal Rumble match and have The Miz win the WWE Championship, and boom, there you go. I would not consistently have these guys interact until WrestleMania, because I feel like by the time that WrestleMania rolls around, it's going to feel old again. It's going to feel like, Miz and Bryan again, like, oh my God, let's just move on from this. So I would keep them apart. I know that they're co-captains on Team SmackDown at Survivor Series. But beyond that, though, I would keep them apart coming out of Survivor Series. I would go back to that feud, revisit that rivalry in time for WrestleMania, and not really do much with them until then. And they have a few other teams they could have the bar go up against in the meantime. I know they beat the New Day a bunch of times, but they have the Usos, who they've never really done a feud with. We have yet to see a true Bar and Usos feud, which could be a lot of fun. So you have the Bar and the Usos, you have the Bar and Sanity. The Bludgeon Brothers, when they get back, if they want to do that, I don't know when Eric Rowan's going to be cleared to compete again, but you could do that feud when they get back. There's a few other feuds you could do. The Bar and Anderson and Gallows, which we've seen before, not really on SmackDown, so there's a few different options you can go with. But I do think with Miz and Bryan as tag team champions, it's a good idea in theory, but if they do end up going the way that I hope that they will, not that I think they will at this point, but I hope that they will, I would keep Miz and Bryan apart coming out of Survivor Series and not keep them paired off in the months to come. Because I feel like by that point, people will have, grown sick of seeing Miz and Bryan together, and their WWE Championship match at WrestleMania wouldn't mean as much. Jeremy's second question, am I the only one tired of Shane McMahon being a part of Team SmackDown every year? Definitely not. You are not alone in feeling that way, my friend. Shane McMahon has no business being a part of Team SmackDown every single year. He was a part of Team SmackDown in 2016. He lasted way longer than he should have. He was a part of Team SmackDown last year, lasted way longer than he should have. He was the fucking sole survivor for SmackDown. I know he lost, but he was the last one on the team. They eliminated Rude, Nakamura, Cena, and Orton ahead of Shane McMahon. That's a fucking joke. This year, we'll see if it's any different, but he's once again the central focus because he was the best in the world, the crown jewel. Now, Corbin's not on Team Raw. Is there really any real reason for Shane to be on Team SmackDown? No, there's not. He can be team captain, but he doesn't have to be in the match. I know Miz and Bryan are co-captains, then fine, have Shane be the manager. He doesn't have to fucking wrestle in this tournament. Or not the tournament. He won the tournament at Crown Jewel, which he was never a part of in the first place. He doesn't have to be a part of Team SmackDown, especially when you consider how many people they have on SmackDown that could take Shane's place. You have Jeff Hardy. You have Andrade Cien Almas. You have Randy Orton. Those are three great picks right there. You have Rusev, the four picks right there that could be in the place of Shane McMahon on Team SmackDown. There is no reason for Shane to be on Team SmackDown. Absolutely no reason. Now, thankfully, the rest of the team looks great. They have Rey Mysterio, Samoa Joe, The Miz, and Daniel Bryan. That's awesome. But Shane has no business being a part of Team SmackDown. And Jeremy's last question here. Do you think the Constable role was originally meant to be for Jason Jordan? I saw that theory too. That was someone from Reddit, I think, had theorized that the Constable role could have been for Jason Jordan based off the way that the Jason Jordan-Kurt Angle feud was going. I don't think so. They gave the Constable role to Baron Corbin in May, which I guess would line up. Jason Jordan got hurt in February, but I know for a fact that the plan going into WrestleMania was to do Kurt Angle and Jason Jordan. And maybe they would have had Jordan. He was already really a heel anyway. Maybe they would have had Jason Jordan, take over Kurt Angle's role as the head GM of SmackDown, of Raw rather. Constable, whatever, acting Raw general manager, doesn't matter. But I could see that being the case. I could see that. I don't think that was the plan. I think they would have run and should have run with Jason Jordan as a top singles heel. Because the guy's good enough in the ring. Baron Corbin really isn't that good, so I think having him in the Constable, GM role, whatever, is fine. Because in the ring, the guy is nothing special anyway. But putting Jordan in that role, I feel like would have been a waste. Now, I guess it could have made sense with the Angle Jordan story they were already telling at the time that Jordan got hurt and was taken off TV earlier this year. But he would have been way better off as a singles heel. In the IC Championship picture, maybe even the Universal Championship picture, there was no reason for him to be an authority figure on the show when he really didn't need to be. So, I guess that's a theory, and I guess it could have made sense. Because they kind of gave Baron Corbin the role around the time that I would assume they would have given it to Jason Jordan right after WrestleMania. But I think it worked out for the better in that Jordan, it really didn't actually, because I don't think Jordan, obviously Jordan getting hurt did not work out for the better. That's not a good thing to say, but I'm saying with Corbin, I think Corbin's a better fit for that role than Jordan would have been. Jordan got great heat, but I think having him as a GM as opposed to in the ring would have been a mistake. At the amazing, beautiful, one and only, at Lex DiGiacomo from the Twitter machine, the glorious girlfriend of mine. Her question was, what do you think are the criteria for a great sequel? Got to hear your film thoughts. We got to do a film podcast soon, my love. I got to agree with that, by the way. We were just talking about that last night over Skype and FaceTime. Alexis and I are hoping to do a movie podcast of some form or fashion in the next couple of months, whatever. We were hoping to do one for Halloween. I got her thoughts on the movie on Wrestle Rant Radio instead. But I am hoping to do a weekly podcast of some form, in some form or fashion of some sort, here on the YouTube channel in the next couple of months or so. On Mondays, probably they would be released, or Tuesdays or so, probably over the weekend, we'll say. But it would be cool to sit down, break down, review movies, so stay tuned for that. And the only real reason it hasn't happened yet is because our schedules kind of conflict in early Mondays and whatnot. So at some point down the road, we will talk about movies and stuff, have our own podcast dedicated solely to movies. She will be on Wrestle Rant Radio this coming Thursday, so stay tuned for that. For her ranting thoughts, her candid 2 cents on Crown Jewel from last Friday, which she watched with me on the WWE Network, so stay tuned for that. But to answer her question, what are the criteria for a great sequel? Great question. I mean, this is all subjective. It can't be a rehash of the original movie, and it has to have its own story. Now, I know she feels this way too because we've discussed this before, but I completely agree that I feel like it has to have its own story and not piggyback off the success of the first one. It's got to be a great movie in and of itself. It can't be a great sequel. It's got to be a great movie alone that just so happens to be a sequel. Now, I know she didn't like The Incredibles for that reason. She felt that it was purely an extension of the first movie. No real character development took place, which I agree with to an extent. I maybe just enjoyed the movie because I grew up on the first Incredibles. It lived up to the hype. It was very entertaining. Maybe not the greatest sequel of all time. I thought it was a very good movie, which, I mean, I guess they're kind of one and the same. So, again, purely subjective. I know she doesn't agree with me on that. But for a great sequel, I think above all else, it has to introduce new characters, capture the feel of the first film, and then expand on that. Make it a great movie in and of itself, and it doesn't have to be better than the original. More often than not, it's not. But I do think it has to stand alone as its own movie, where people can watch the second one without even having to see the first one and still understand the story and the characters and enjoy the movie for what it is. So that's what my thoughts are on a great sequel. Like, Back to the Future 2 is my favorite film of that franchise. The third one's okay. The first one's amazing. But the second one is my favorite. I think it's better than the first one. The first one has an amazing story. It's a classic film. The second one has a completely different story. It takes even more advantage of the time travel aspect of that universe and going to the future as opposed to the past. They kind of play around with the idea more. They introduce new characters. They kind of play off the first film. It's a great movie in and of itself. So that's what I see in being a great sequel, in my personal opinion. You may disagree. Anyone listening may disagree. But it's got to stand alone as its own movie, have an awesome story, develop the characters from the first film, at the same time introducing new ones, and just be its own movie. I guess really that's what I want to hammer home more than anything else, that it has to be its own movie and not piggyback off the success of the first film. At Brad Bird R from Twitter, his question was, first question of two, the last 2 questions of the day, why weren't one of the Iconics given a spot on Team SmackDown instead of Sonya and Mandy? I know have largely been enhancement talent so far, but at least people actually care about them based on how annoyed some people are by their promos. Do people actually really care about the Iconics, though? I know they get more heat than Mandy and Sonya do, but they're really not that good. I cannot tell you one great Iconics match I've seen since they got called up to SmackDown. Same thing with Sonya and Mandy, don't get me wrong, but their promo work is fucking atrocious. Their promos are awful. Their promos are not good, and the only real reason that people are booing is because they can't change the channel in the arena. That's why people hate the Iconics. Their voices are obnoxious in like the worst way possible. They have like a Laycool vibe about them, where Laycool towards the end, oh my god, they did nothing for the division, and they were just obnoxious beyond obnoxious. To the point where like I'd rather change the channel than than see them get beat. The Iconics, unlike Laycool, have never won gold, and they've never been positioned as a threat. Again, Mandy and Sonya, same thing, I guess, to an extent. They seem more in Sonya and Mandy, and I guess they can play up this whole teasing tension thing, which I don't think people really care about to begin with. About teasing tension between these two longtime friends, who cares? I don't know, they seem more in Mandy as a single star than Sonya, I guess. So maybe that's why they're going with them as members of Team SmackDown. It really doesn't matter, they're purely filler. They had to put someone on the team. I would have put Lana on the team, honestly. Lana's awful. She's not good. But she probably would have made more sense than either Sonya, Mandy, or either one of the Iconics. Because she's on TV more consistently, and people care about her more than Sonya, Mandy, or the Iconics. That's just a fact. And you guys know how I feel about Lana. She is terrible in the ring. But she at least makes more sense than any one of those 4 women. I don't know if you could put one of those 4 women on the team without putting the other one on the team. Like, if you put Peyton Royce on the team, why not Billie Kay? And if you're going to put Sonya on the team, why not Mandy Rose? Which is why I would go with Lana. Or Zelina Vega. Probably Lana, though, just because more people care about her. And Brad's last question here of the day. Would you be okay with the 10-on-10 tag team match at Survivor Series being rapid-fire eliminations if it means coming down to the Revival against either the New Day or the Usos so they can put on a potentially show-stealing match? I guess it looks like we're getting the 10-on-10 tag team match where I would assume, now again, purely assuming here, pure speculation, that if one member of the team gets eliminated, the whole team is gone, which is what it should be. If you have to eliminate one person one by one, that's going to take forever. With 20 people, that's going to take forever, and no one cares about seeing fucking Xavier Woods getting eliminated, but Kofi and Big E surviving. That makes no sense. So I would do that. I would have, of all the teams on Raw, it'd probably be the team. I mean, not the Revival, probably AOP. But then again, AOP will likely be facing the Bar in a champion versus champion match. So if they're not in the equation, yeah, the Revival should be the last team in there. I mean, who else is it going to be? The fucking B team? Who cares? Lucha Dragons or Lucha House Party? I guess maybe. The Ascension? No. Rude and Gable? No. So yeah, the Revival should be the last team in there. They shouldn't win. But yeah, the Revival versus either the New Day or the Usos, preferably the Usos, that would be fucking awesome. We'll likely never get to see the Usos and New Day. I assume that they'll be on separate shows for the foreseeable future, if not ever. And the Revival really just don't mean that much. So if the Revival and the Usos can go in there and have a great final stretch like what we saw from Survivor Series 2016 when it was the Bar and the Usos, then I'm all for it. I mean, the Revival are never really going to be pushed as a serious tag team. That's been well established by now. But if those guys can go in there and have a great match with the Usos, it won't change anything because they had a great match with McIntyre and Ziggler not too long ago, and it led to nothing. But you know what? At least it's something, and at least will make the match worthwhile. So I am all for that idea. And that does it, guys, for episode 258 here today for hashtag AskGSM. Thank you guys for checking out the show as always. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, have a great rest of your week. We'll be back next week with an all-new edition of hashtag AskGSM, likely breaking down the Survivor Series pay-per-view, which is coming up next weekend. Quickly approaching, I know, feels like it's basically tomorrow with all these fucking pay-per-views happening at once. But nonetheless, guys, enjoy the rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.